Nobody noticed the girl who carried her own bag through the gates of Crestfall. That was the thing about Ilara Voss. She had a gift for going unseen, not because she was unpleasant to look at, she was not, but because she had spent 22 years learning how to make herself small, how to step aside before someone asked her to, how to eat quickly and leave a room before anyone decided she did not deserve to be in it. She had lived in 4 different packs since her parents died, and in all 4, no one had ever used her name twice in the same day. Crestfall was the 5th pack. She told herself this one would be the same as the others. She told herself that because it was easier than hoping. A teenager named Finn was the only one who came to greet her. He was 16, friendly in the careless way of someone who had never needed to be careful, and he handed her a glass of water without being asked. She thanked him. He shrugged and said it was no big deal. She thought, "You have no idea what a big deal it is." He showed her to the ward quarters, a small room at the back of the pack house, clean enough, with a narrow window that looked out onto the supply shed. She had slept in worse. She set her bag on the floor, sat on the edge of the bed, and breathed slowly until the tightness in her chest loosened. The rules were what she expected. Stay out of the Alpha's wing. Do not attend pack meals unless invited. Make herself useful. She was handed a list of daily chores before the sun had finished setting on her first day. She read it, folded it, and put it in her pocket. She had been handed lists like this before. She knew what they meant. You are here on someone else's patience, so do not push it. She did not push it. On her 3rd evening, she was carrying a stack of folded linens toward the storage room when she took a wrong turn and ended up at the edge of the outdoor training yard. She stopped immediately, ready to back away. The yard was full, ranked wolves mid-session, moving through drills with the kind of precision that came from years of discipline. She kept her eyes down and moved along the wall, counting her steps the way she always did when she was nervous. 1, 2, 3. She never looked up, so she did not see it happen. She did not see every wolf in the training yard stop moving at the same moment. She did not see the way the air changed, that particular stillness that falls over a crowd when something unexpected occurs. She did not see the large gray wolf at the center of the yard, the one that belonged to Damien Ashvale, Alpha King of 5 territories, drop. Not in aggression, not in pain. In deference. The wolf bowed, low, deliberate, the way wolves bow to something they recognize as greater than themselves. It happened in the space of 3 seconds. Then Damien pulled it back, snapped himself into control, and told his second-in-command that practice was over for the evening. No explanation. His second-in-command knew better than to ask for one. Damien stood in the empty training yard long after everyone else had gone and watched the doorway through which the girl with the folded linens had disappeared. He did not know her name yet. He told himself it did not matter. He was wrong, but that would take time. In the days that followed, Damien kept himself occupied with things that mattered. A border dispute with the northern packs needed his attention. A council summit was approaching. His beta female, Petra Madsen, had been suggesting with increasing frequency that it was time for him to formally choose a mate, and he had been ignoring her with increasing skill. He had built his entire reputation on focus. He was not about to let an unexplained instinct disrupt 11 years of careful work. But his wolf did not forget. It tracked her, not aggressively, just aware. The way you are aware of a sound that is slightly different from all the other sounds in a room. Every time Ilara moved through the pack house, refilling the kitchen stores, carrying firewood, slipping past hallways, the wolf noticed. And because the wolf noticed, Damien noticed. And because he noticed, he was irritated, which was its own kind of problem. He told himself it was nothing. He almost believed it. What he did not know was that Ilara had her own quiet difficulties. Petra had taken an immediate disliking to her, not for any reason Ilara had given her, but simply because Petra disliked things she could not categorize, and Ilara did not fit neatly into any box. She was not loud enough to be a problem, and not small enough to be ignored entirely. So Petra made her a project. The chores assigned to Ilara became harder, the hours became longer. At pack dinners, there was never quite enough space saved for her at the lower table. Ilara said nothing. She had learned that saying something only made it worse. One night, very late, Damien came to the kitchen for water. It was something he did occasionally when he could not sleep, which he would not have admitted to anyone. He found Ilara on her knees, mopping a floor that someone had tracked deliberate mud across, the third time this week, from the look on her face. She did not notice him at first. When she did, she stood, moved aside, and looked at the floor. He should have poured his water and walked out. Instead, he asked her if she had eaten dinner. She paused for just a moment too long. Then she said yes. He said nothing else. He poured his water and left. But the next morning, a covered plate appeared outside the door of the ward quarters. No name on it. No explanation. Finn, when asked, shrugged and said he had no idea. Ilara ate every bite slowly, thinking that it was probably a mistake, left for someone else, or just one of those strange things that happened in large households. She did not let herself think it was kindness. She had been wrong about kindness before. The trouble came 3 weeks after her arrival. Damien had ridden out with his ranked wolves to deal with the border dispute in person. While he was gone, Petra moved quickly. She arranged for a formal accusation, a claim that Ilara had taken items from the packhouse stores. It was the kind of accusation that was almost impossible to disprove, because it relied entirely on who the council chose to believe, and the council had known Petra for years. The hearing was held in the pack council room. Ilara stood at the front of it, alone, while Petra's chosen witnesses gave their accounts. She kept her hands at her sides. She did not let her voice shake when it was her turn to speak. She said, simply and clearly, she had not taken anything. That was all she said. She had learned not to argue against people who had already decided. In the corner of the room, an old man named Elder Rowan sat in the chair he always sat in during council meetings, supposedly half asleep, but his eyes were open, and they were on Ilara. He had been watching her for weeks, quietly, in the way of someone who is looking for something they once lost. The way she held herself when she was frightened, that particular stillness, that set of the jaw, he had seen it before. In old portraits. In bloodline records older than the packhouse itself. He was still thinking about it when the door opened. Damien came in, still wearing travel clothes, dust on his boots, because he had received word of the hearing, and come directly without stopping. He read the room in 4 seconds. The panel, the witnesses, Petra's carefully neutral expression, Ilara standing alone at the front. And he said, "This proceeding is adjourned." Petra started to object. He looked at her once. She stopped. He dismissed everyone, and then, in the empty council room, he asked Ilara what had happened. She told him. Not dramatically. 3 sentences, calm and precise. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he thanked her, and told her she could go. She was almost at the door when he said her name. She turned. He said, "The accusation will be formally withdrawn by morning." It was the first time anyone in Crestfall had said her name. She nodded and walked out. He stood in the council room for a while after that, looking at the chair where she had stood, trying to understand something he did not have words for yet. Elder Rowan found Ilara in the library 12 days later. She went there when she could not sleep, which was often. He sat across from her without ceremony, and pushed a piece of old parchment across the table. It was a bloodline chart, generations of names in careful ink, some of them so old the writing had faded to gray. He pointed to a name near the top, then he pointed to her mother's name near the bottom. She stared at it for a long time. Then she said that it was impossible. He said he had thought so too, for 30 years. He explained it carefully. Her mother had placed a seal on her as a child, a protection, he said, to keep her hidden from people who would use her bloodline as a claim or a weapon. The seal had suppressed her wolf. That was why she had never shifted. That was why she had always felt something inside her that was sleeping and would not wake. But seals, he said, do not last forever, especially not near someone whose wolf recognizes what is sleeping. She understood then what she had half seen in her peripheral vision that first evening, the wolf in the training yard, bowing toward her as she walked past without looking. She had spent 2 weeks telling herself she had imagined it. She had not imagined it. Rowan told her she had perhaps 3 weeks before the seal finished breaking. He told her the Alpha King's wolf had already known what she was from the moment she walked through the gates. He told her gently that there was nothing she needed to do, except perhaps stop trying so hard to disappear. She walked back to her room that night and sat in the dark for a long time, her hand over her chest, feeling for the first time in her life the faint warmth of something enormous and patient, waiting. Things changed between her and Damien slowly, the way seasons change, not in a single moment, but in an accumulation of small ones. He began appearing in rooms she was in, not following her exactly, just present. He asked her into a council meeting to take notes, and then, at the end, asked her what she thought of the decision that had been made. She gave him an honest answer. He considered it seriously. The council watched this exchange with wide, careful eyes. Petra, watching all of this, made her final move. She went around Damien to a council member and filed a formal removal order, an old pack law that prohibited unranked wards from extended residency. It was legal. It was also, without any attempt at disguise, an effort to remove Alara before anything else could change. The paperwork reached Damien at dinner. He read it at the table. Then he set it down and looked across the room, where Alara was refilling water glasses and had not yet noticed anything was wrong. He stood. He invoked the Alpha King's shelter right, a provision so old it had not been used in 40 years, a declaration that placed one individual under the Alpha's permanent protection, overriding all other orders. It could not be challenged. It could not be undone. The dining room went completely silent. Petra asked him, very quietly, if he understood what the old law implied, that invoking shelter right carried weight beyond simple protection, that it was the kind of declaration a person made when they intended something to be permanent. He said he was aware. She asked why he would do that for a ward with no rank. He said, because she belongs here. He did not say it gently. He said it the way he said everything. Flatly, without decoration, like something he had simply decided was true and was done discussing. Across the room, Alara had gone very still, the water pitcher forgotten in both hands. The seal broke on a full moon, as her mother had always known it would. Alara was in the courtyard alone, having felt for days the pressure of something enormous trying to breathe inside her. When it finally happened, there was no dramatic sound. There was only light, silver white and deeply calm, that grew from somewhere inside her chest and spread outward, and then solidified into a wolf so large and so luminous that the pack wolves on the outer wall stopped where they stood. Damien was the first one through the courtyard door. He saw her wolf, standing quietly in the silver light, patient and ancient and radiantly itself, and his own wolf, without hesitation, without confusion, for the first time without a fight, bowed again, deep and certain, the way it had bowed on that first evening, when a girl with a second-hand bag had walked past without looking. This time Damien did not pull it back. The pack gathered behind him, drawn by instinct. They saw what stood in the courtyard. They understood, in the wordless way that wolves understand things, what they were looking at. Elder Rowan stood at the back of the crowd, his arms folded, and said nothing at all. He just nodded once, to himself. Damien walked through the crowd. He walked until he was standing in front of Alara, who had shifted back and was standing very still, as she always did when she did not know what was coming next. He looked at her for a moment. Really looked, the way he had been avoiding doing for weeks, because he had understood, somewhere below conscious thought, that if he looked properly he would not be able to stop. He said her name, then he said he was sorry it had taken him so long to understand what he was looking at. She said, his wolf figured it out first. He laughed. It was a short sound, surprised out of him, unpracticed, real, like something that had not been used in a while but still worked. She watched it happen, and felt, for the first time in as long as she could remember, entirely and safely present in a place. In the days that followed, the pack readjusted itself around a new reality. Alara's bloodline was formally documented, not because she asked for it, but because the council needed something to write down. She attended pack meals and sat where there was room for her, which was everywhere now. Finn came to tell her importantly that he had always thought there was something different about her, which made her smile. Petra submitted a formal resignation. Alara heard about it and asked Damien, the same evening, whether Petra would be all right. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said that she was asking about someone who had tried to have her removed from pack territory twice. She said, yes, but it was still worth asking. He did not say anything immediately, but something in his expression changed, softened in a way that had nothing to do with being caught off guard, and everything to do with recognition. He had met people who were kind when kindness was easy. He had never met someone who chose it when it cost them something. There was an evening in the library, her library, the one she went to when she could not sleep, where they talked until the candles burned all the way down. She told him about the 4 packs before Crestfall. He told her about inheriting the Alpha King title at 19 and learning to carry a weight he had not chosen. She told him she used to count steps when she was frightened. He told her he still did, sometimes, just in his own way. He asked her to stay. Not because of bloodlines or old laws or what the council would think. He asked her because Crestfall had been different since she arrived, quieter in the right places, braver in the ones that mattered, and he wanted to keep that. He wanted to keep her. She said yes. Then she said she had seen the bow, the first one, in the training yard. She had been watching the ground, but it had been there in the corner of her eye, and she had spent 2 weeks convincing herself she had imagined it. He was very still. She said she had not imagined it. He looked at her in the dark of the library, with the last candle finally going out, and understood that this quiet girl with a second-hand bag and a talent for disappearing had seen him more clearly on the first evening than anyone had in 11 years. His wolf had known before he did. But he had gotten there eventually, and that, she told him, was the part that counted.